Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday. Hope everybody's being safe out there. Got a little bit of snow yesterday, but we got a big fight coming up tonight. The rematch between Oleksandr Usyk and Tyson Fury. Uh, before I get into it, make sure you like, subscribe on the YouTube channel, all that good stuff, and I'm gonna give you my predictions and what I think happened in the first fight, how I think the second fight is gonna play out, and who I think is gonna win. So, without further ado, I'm gonna keep it brief, but the first fight I think told us a lot about where both fighters were at, and how the next fight's going to play out. Because the first fight, you have the taller guy, 6'9", with an 85-inch reach, and then you have the shorter guy at 6'3", with a 78-inch reach in Usyk. And it was a tale of one guy trying to cross the void, as Demetrius Johnson would refer to it as, the space between in no man's land, and the other guy, the taller guy, being on the back foot trying to be the counterpuncher. And I think the problem that Tyson Fury had was that being on the back foot, one, you're constantly on the defensive and you're burning through your gas tank quicker than your opponent, especially a guy like Usyk that's putting that mental pressure on you. And he's moving his head off the center line, high guard up, punches coming from odd angles, and he's a blown up cruiserweight, and he has the gas tank to be able to do that from round one all the way through round 12. And early on in the fight, Tyson Fury, he was controlling the action. I think the first 1 or 2 rounds, Usyk won, and then after that, you had a stretch of 4, 5, 6 rounds. Well, yeah, about 4 rounds where Tyson Fury looked like he was starting to take over the fight, and Usyk was starting to get hit with some shots in rounds 5 and 6, and I thought that Usyk needed to do something very significant to turn that fight around. And then he started really ramping up the pressure. And then at that point, we saw Tyson Fury start to slow down a little bit. And that's when he started getting caught with that overhand left, as well as the straight two, more often, leading up to that one punch in round 9, I believe, where Usyk threw the one and pow came through with that two and started that whole series where they had to give him the standing 10 count. So what I noticed was the feet, and I think I mentioned this in my pre-fight prediction video, and I'm gonna go reference this real quick. But in my pre-fight analysis, I looked at the previous 6 fights that they had leading up to this fight, and my opinion was that Usyk had by far the better competition. Uh, Tyson Fury, he had Deontay Wilder in the second and third fight, where Deontay Wilder, he had figured him out, man. He took his best punch and he figured out that he was a one punch fighter. That's a hell of a one trick, but he was too one dimensional. Otto Wallen, okay, Dillian White, um, he's not a top level heavyweight at this point. Derek Chisora, he was getting a payday at that point. He Fury even acknowledged it in the pre-fight lead up. And then Francis Ngannou, who is was in his second fight in a boxing ring, and although he's a very very great fighter, like overall fighter, as a boxer, he was still learning. So yeah, he won the fight, but he struggled. So like he didn't really have a lot of great competition leading up to the Usyk fight. Whereas Usyk, you beat Tony Bellew. Um, I I think that might have been at cruiserweight. I can't remember, or it might have been, yeah, it might have been a cruiserweight. Either way, that was a good win. Chaz Witherspoon, that's a solid win. Derek Chisora, that was his step up to heavyweight, and he struggled against Chisora because I think that was his first fight against a really big bodied opponent, and that's the fight that let us know that Usyk had the chin and the wherewithal to be able to withstand punches from not just heavyweights but big heavyweights. And then we saw him beat Joshua not once but twice. Anthony Joshua had come back from the Andy Ruiz laws and had reestablished himself, only for Usyk to come in and say, "No, I'm the new guy on the block," and he beat him in the rematch too. And I'm going to reference back to that because I think it's very important and it's going to give us insight into this rematch. And then he was able to beat Daniel Dubois. Some people will say that was a legal blow that Dubois dropped Usyk with. Some will say that was below the belt. Um, but either way, we just saw Dubois completely dismantle Anthony Joshua. But that was a great opponent. So he had sharpened his sword against really high level opponents. And I think we saw that in the first fight. It just looked like Tyson Fury was a little bit tentative in the lead up, a little bit off his game in terms of like the mental games and whatnot. Usyk was just not phased. We kind of have it stuck in our heads, or I have it stuck in my head that he was like, "Yo, I will not leave you alone." Like, and he didn't, and he eventually walked him down and almost stopped him. So going into this rematch, here are the things that I think that both guys need to do, and who I think is going to win. For Tyson Fury, he has to fight coming forward. And I think there's a reason why he put on 19 extra pounds. He weighed in at 281 instead of 262 that he weighed in at the first fight. And I think he wants to try to lean on, walk forward against Usyk and not be on the back foot so much. Pick and choose his spots when he's on the back foot and put his body weight on him, lean on him. And then, secondly, he's going to have to keep that hand up. Over the course of the fight, I think moving on the back foot, not necessarily by choice, even though he will say that. I think Usyk didn't give him a choice, and eventually you're going to burn through your gas tank quicker than your opponent. And if your opponent already has a good gas tank, that just it puts you in a bad spot. And eventually that's why you start seeing the hands dropping because you're tired. You're starting to, instead of punching and shooting and keeping that hand up, now you're punching and shooting with that hand down. And all it takes is one looping shot or one straight shot while you're in between yours for you to get clipped. So I think that he'll rectify those things to a certain extent. And then on Usyk's side, he doesn't really need to change a whole lot. I just think that maybe if he's able to add like 5 pounds of muscle, and he might have done that because he came in at 226, a career high, whereas he weighed in at 223 pounds in the first fight. So I wouldn't be surprised if he cut a little bit of fat, if that's even possible for him, and then maybe he cut down to 220 and then added 5 pounds of muscle, 6 pounds of muscle to get back up to 226. Who knows? But he certainly looks ready. And I think for this fight, he needs to. Um, I don't really think he needs to change a whole lot. I think he needs to be wary of the uppercuts. So if you watch the fight, Usyk was constantly moving off the center line. But when he would throw his jab as a southpaw, he would throw his jab, boom, and lean left. And Tyson Fury was looking to throw his right uppercut to try to catch him when he was leaning down. And he caught him about. He had two really good uppercuts that clearly affected Usyk, um, and he was also able to land to the body with that uppercut as well. So I think that that's something that Usyk is going to have to be ready for because that's what I would do if I was Fury, and I was impressed that doesn't take a high IQ. It just shows that Fury is a fighter's fighter. I think Oleksandr Usyk, his IQ is unmatched across weight divisions, whether it's cruiserweight or heavyweight. But Tyson Fury still has a high IQ as a fighter, and he just knows based off your positioning what can I throw, and that uppercut is coming. So Usyk's gonna have to watch out for that. Um, I think outside of that, I don't really think that Usyk really needs to worry about too much because the Tyson Fury, he's going to have to be more active with this jab. He can't leave, excuse me, this one. He can't leave his jab hanging out lazily because Usyk is just going to slip to the outside and and outflank you. And after you get outflanked, it's you know what comes next after that. Whether it's Alexander Usyk or Vasily Lomachenko or Manny Pacquiao, I mean, the list goes on of guys who are really explosive with their feet. Anyway, once they get outside your lead foot, they go to work on you, and that's what happened in the last fight with Usyk and Fury. And Fury needs to make sure that he's putting a little more oomph behind that jab, and maybe the extra weight can help him with that. But all in all, um, I'm going to echo the sentiments that Tony Bellew said in the first fight. And I think it really comes down to the boxing IQ and the feet. I just I think that Tyson Fury has solid feet, but I don't know if his legs are starting to go on him, and I don't know if the stamina will be there past round 6 if he's not able to walk Usyk into a punch early and hurt him and stop him. Um, if he's able to walk Usyk into a punch early and be able to walk him down and get hands on him, I think he wins the fight. Like logic says that the bigger guy should win the fight, especially in the rematch where he's had a chance to see exactly who Usyk is, just like he did with Deontay Wilder, just like he did. He had two other fights where he came back and he was able to dominate in the rematch. But against Usyk, no, outside of continuing to land the uppercut and the hook to the body, what else can he really do that Usyk isn't prepared for in terms of defense and head movement and ring generalship? I don't really know the answer to that. Because he's shown that he can neutralize that jab and really get inside. And once he gets inside, I think Usyk is much more powerful than people give him credit for, and I think Fury found that out. But the legs are they could be an issue, and that's why I'm going to pick Usyk for the rematch. Um, I think it comes down to who is fading faster. They both really had a tough fight in that first matchup. They took a lot of punishment. I think Fury took more punishment, but Usyk took a lot of punishment. And those fights, you leave something in the ring when you have those type of fights. You can ask, we've seen it with Ali and Frazier after the Thriller in Manila. We've seen it with Mickey Ward and Arturo Gotti, like wars. Like now, this wasn't a war like that, but they were exchanging enough shots where you knew that these guys knew that they were in a fight. So I just think that Fury took a little more punishment, and between his fights and in addition to the time off after the Klitschko fight where he just completely went off the rails, and thank God that he was able to get his life together and come back and really have a successful second half to his career. But between fights, especially with the Ngannou fight where he blew up and ballooned up in weight, this is something we also saw with Ricky Hatton a lot. As good as Ricky Hatton was, um, and and um, and we also saw this with Roberto Duran in between fights. As good as Ricky Hatton was, and as great as Roberto Duran was, they the weight fluctuations in between fights I think caught up with them, and I think we're seeing it catch up to Tyson Fury in real time. It's just not as noticeable maybe as with the other guys because he's 6'9" and he's a freak of nature in terms of his build. But um, the lack of foot dexterity and agility I think showed up in the first fight. His hands are still real, but the legs may not be there. And I think that will be the separating factor in what otherwise would be a very close fight, um, a 50-50 matchup, if you will. So I'm going with Usyk. Um, I think that Fury is more prepared. He got a sense of who Usyk is and what his power's like in the first fight, and that's given him confidence in terms of, okay, I know what his timing is like a little more. I know what I can get away with and what I can't. I know what type of punch I can take and what I can't take from him. I know what his power is like to a certain extent, speed, all that stuff. But ask Anthony Joshua, you can know all those things, but if you physically, if your body can't follow what your mind is telling it won't really make a difference. So when Usyk starts cutting those angles and outflanking him, unless Usyk falls off a cliff overnight over the past 6 or 7 months, I don't really see much changing in terms of the footwork between the two. And I think that will always be the deciding factor when you have a big guy and a little guy. Great big fighter always beats the smaller, quicker fighter, even though they're both great. But a bigger fighter who has certain things like footwork that are lacking, now all of a sudden the scales even out and may even shift in the favor of the smaller fighter. And that's the way I see this fight. But I think that Tyson Fury is focused, he's ready, and there might have been a little bit of tentativeness the first fight around, and I think that he was wary of Usyk. But I think this time around, whether he wins or not, I don't think you're going to see a guy that's uh, tentative at all. I think he's going to go out for the gusto, go after him just like he did against Deontay Wilder. We'll just see if he can get the same outcome. But I'm going to go with Usyk on this fight. And I like both fighters, man. So, in all honesty, I hope that Tyson Fury can prove me wrong, show me that he has more left in the gas tank. I think he still has a little bit more left in the gas tank. And I think there was a little bit of chaos in the first training camp, and I think he'll come in more prepared, both physically and mentally. But I'm still going Usyk with this one. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and hey, may the best man win. I think it's gonna be a great fight. Till next time, y'all. Deuces.